Welcome back to Ferocious Education, this is Ed. Today we're talking about Vinco Ventures or BBIG. It's been a while since I talked about them, but Vinco Ventures or BBIG is a company here that works into acquiring different ventures or different smaller companies, into buying them, innovating in them, and then growing them, and then perhaps selling them or doing a spin-off later on with shares. So they didn't have any news coming up ever since the November kind of period. Their latest news is labeled on November 22nd, relating towards their financial reports in the third quarter, and that was that. There hasn't been much going on since then for quarter four or ever since anything relating towards the Questrade launch. So if you do recall, I did talk about it in my last video. We did go over basically everything about Questrade and what they have given for us, for instance, including the spinoff of shares and how that's going to go. So it does talk about 1 share of Questrade common stock is going to be given for every 10 shares of Vinco Ventures. So if you have 1,000 shares of BBIG, you're going to get 100 shares of Questrade. Now, they didn't talk exact details, exact dates, and we did talk about that, and they still have that. Now, they did kind of mention a little bit of different dates in their SEC filing. For instance, it did talk about raising some shares off a transaction based on January 5th. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, from press releases, there hasn't been any since November 22nd, where they kind of abruptly around that period were supposed to have the Questrade thing going on, and they just basically canceled it or delayed it for the time being. And they even had a presentation for Questrade. If you do recall, it looked something like this, and it did talk about some of the dates and some of the breakdowns of what's happening. Now, this is still a lot of it is all valid, but the breakdown of the exact details of the dates that were originally mentioned on this presentation here about October 22nd was delayed. Now, this company here, BBIG, also owns eNFT, which, if you do remember, was the big hit for Tory Lane's NFT kind of platform, and they sold it around, I believe, $1 per album, and you get to see lowest as 182. Now, some people are really having on wishful thinking, putting this one to, I think, the maximum amount of money this can actually raise you. But nonetheless, you can still get these at 182, so it's not the crazy NFT frenzy for the ENFT.com album platforms. Now, you can actually even buy multiple different things on there, including Nick Cannon's limited edition, Karen open edition resale market, and a bunch of different options for the marketplace. Now, going on towards this SEC filing that I did talk about, this is in relation that they were selling some shares and warrants, not shares, but more of warrants and things going on around, and they basically exceeded the 20% rule of the outstanding number of shares immediately, was closed by NASDAQ and regained compliance, so nothing big there to talk about. The other thing that we were talking about is in relations to the previous one, and this was actually talking about the warrants that we're putting out and remaining outstanding shares. And I do imagine they're doing this before they do go ahead and do the spin-off for Tide to raise as much cash as they can. Now, currently, in terms of institutional buyers, it's a little bit mixed. The majority of it is going towards the selling side, at least for the bigger names, since around 29th of December. You go back a little, you start seeing additional shares being added, so it's a little bit mixed at this point. Now, we also did talk about their financial reports. This was actually mentioned back in November 22nd, and they do talk about a few things, including, for instance, Vinco Ventures and Sash Global Media, which I did talk about, completed the acquisition of 80% of interest in Lomotive Private Limited. They also officially launched in India past the weekend following the beta test. And this was for Lomotive, worked in India with Social Kite, a popular influencer platform. And they do talk a little bit about as well Zash and ENFT.com with, for instance, the albums that were put out for Nick Cannon and Incredible Gang on its ENFT.com platform. They also do talk a little bit about right here, the Questrade. So right here it does say, so first off, the Questrade recently launched according to artist Tory Lane's album When It's Dark, and they talk about Questrade has ENFT.com. We covered what Questrade has and doesn't have. And they say the company subsidiary, Questrade, filed its preliminary Form 10 with the SEC and connections, which is going to be owned solely by the 100% of, it's going to be owned through these spin-off shares and it's going to have the EVNT 100% of that for the platform, and a distribution date is expected to occur in early 2022. So that's as much as they give it in terms of dates. They do talk a little bit about the money. For instance, cash and cash equivalent restricted is around $150 million, and the revenues decreased 11.5%. And they do talk about much more of this, but I'm gonna skip on to this and take a quick look at E-Trade. So the price over sales for this one is around 26.87, so still considerably higher than a lot of people would anticipate it to. Although, if you take 287 multiplied by the number of shares out, you currently have almost 1-on-1 with cash that they do have, or 1-to-2 to be really specific. If you do recall, the number of cash that they mentioned they have is around 149, so around 1-to-2, which is not bad. Now, profitability doesn't look good. It's actually quite horrible, with the net profit margin being negative 9,000%. I'm not sure how accurate this is to this year because it's a delayed indicator on TTM. Similarly, management effectiveness doesn't look good. Now, before moving on towards technical analysis, make sure to click the subscribe button and leave the notifications button on for this channel, and also don't forget to drop a like. And now towards technical analysis. So Vinco Ventures here, we have some good news. So there is on the technical analysis a few indicators that are attempting to go towards the bullish side, so the price point can go above the 50 SMA soon at 326 and become bullish. So it's on track. Today it gained 23%, which is a really nice jump from where it was. But if you take a look into the longer term, it was back at 1249 not long ago, a few months ago. And so it was really painful to see where it is right now. It's still considerably one of the lowest points it's been for a while for this year. But on the 80x, it's sitting almost at 20, suggesting that there is a chance for this one to start becoming an uptrend. Now, the William percent R is showing that this one is in fact very close, if not overbought. It's on the borderline, but the RSI shows that it's overbought. These two similar indicators can be used together, and you can basically say it's moderately overbought, meaning buyers are in control rather than sellers at this point. Now, William percent R, you're able to see that, but with MACD, you're able to see that there is some strong momentum kind of moving on a little bit, inching onto a positive reversal, and that's a bullish thing. Momentum actually has gone from negative 0.77 to 0.23 positive, so that is a bullish move, a good direction to be going in. In terms of stochastic fast and stochastic slow, all these indicators are going upwards, so suggesting there might be another leg up for this one, and it's in a good direction. In terms of the moving average bands, it's between 295 and 241. Meanwhile, the Bollinger Bands are between 329 and 207. So you get to see it's right on, still in the moving average bands. It can accumulate between the two, but the moving average bands and the Bollinger Bands are stabilizing, and that's a good thing. Now, on Fibonacci retracements, you're able to see a significant resistance of 444, 598, 722, 846, 1023, and 1249. Meanwhile, the support is at 195. Now, in terms of analyst recommendations, we have none. But on the price line action, we're able to see a very strong support sitting closer to around the 284, and then 258, and then around 241 and 228. In terms of resistances, there's 313, and then 328, and then 383, 407, 461, and then around $5, and then around 543, 603, around 664, going higher to 729, and around 770, 819, around 838, 911, going higher to 961 and $10. Comes to the question, Ed, what do you think about this one? Well, I have been a fan of Vinco Ventures. Their ENFT thing can be considered into, yes, the metaverse and all that stuff coming on. But you have to ask yourself, are you fine if you were to, let's say tomorrow jumps to $5, or the day after, for instance, it goes down to $1 somehow miraculously, even though I think this is a far fetch, but this stock has history of jumping really high overnight through basically retail through a few days and making a good amount of money for some people, from $2 to almost $13. And it has history of dropping not as fast, but moderately fast back down. So you got to be very careful if you're trading this one. But also if you're investing, invest because you like this company and you're fine holding a piece of the pie, even if it loses you money in the short term. What do you think about the sticker? Make sure to mention down in the comments below. Sure, subscribe and like, and have a wonderful day. Now, if you're still here on this video, make sure to drop down below and join our Discord. We have a lot of different things going on, including, for instance, members that gives picks for free. It's not pump and dumps, we just things we think about, swings, etc. We also have really exciting bots. You can actually use those ones. For instance, we're just testing out this bot, for instance, that gives you Fibonacci resistance points, activities, etc. And we have a bunch of free things, totally free. We run on tips here, and you can ask me questions, suggest stocks, etc. It's a really nice community that has been growing up very fast at a very good rate, and it's totally free. If you would like to join that one, feel free to do so in the description below, and have a wonderful day.